I have several offices, and in every office I have a little sticky, and it says you can't sell what you're not selling. And it's on every one of my monitors. So I constantly have that in my face, that pick up that phone, because you can't sell it if you're not speaking to someone.
From Reminder Media, this is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business. Hosted by the VP of Marketing, Josh Stake, and Reminder Media's president, Luke Acree. So get ready to hear the golden nuggets that will allow you to live a life of freedom tomorrow, but only if you take action today.
All right, welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. Luke, how are we doing today, man? How's Reminder Media? Hey, we've been told that people want to know a little bit more about the journey of Reminder Media. If you're checking out this video on staypaidpodcast.com, you can see two giant office spaces empty between each of us. It looks pretty cool, but what's the scoop?
Well, the scoop is that no one is here except for Jeff Todd, who's the gentleman you can see in the video that walked behind me. So Jeff is actually, just so people know, he's been with us for, almost 20 years. And Jeff is what you would call is a cold calling machine. I mean, this guy for, the last 20 years has called like 150, 200 people a day, over 4 hours of phone time every single day. But you can see behind me on the sales floor, there's literally no one here. The cubes are all empty, the bullpen, but we've been able to, we've talked about this on other episodes, we've been able to keep up our sales during COVID. Yeah. It's been really interesting.
The building is empty, but the phones are ringing, man.
Yeah, we're
have dialing, I guess.
100 plus people on the phones virtually. But what's interesting is that, and I think this is a really good golden nugget for people to take away if you're in sales right now, it's all about changing the narrative. Meaning the product value, you just got to change the narrative of how you deliver it. Because we literally were on the phone with a guy named Seth Green today because we're doing a webinar to his audience. We actually interviewed him. I forget what episode that was, but we interviewed this guy. But he was saying he was trying 3 of his webinars and he fell flat on all 3 of his last webinars. And he said, I've never fallen flat before. And he said, so then what I did, he picked up some book and reread this marketing book. But he said, I changed it to being, you have to do something like this during COVID versus just, hey, do this in spite of COVID. He changed the whole narrative. He said he did 100,000 in sales on Monday just from his first webinar. Just the power of changing the narrative. So for us with our sales team, it's all about changing the messaging so it actually applies to the pain point that people are going through.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we have an amazing interview for everybody today. We have on the show Donna O'Sullivan. She is the owner of D. O'Sullivan Agency and has worked with Allstate for 35 years to help clients with their personal and business insurance needs. Her and her family have been awarded top commercial producer year after year, helping business owners countrywide with all of their insurance needs. Donna, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, Donna, it's awesome to have you here. Go ahead and just introduce yourself to the audience. When I first met you, I knew instantly in that conference room here at Reminder Media, wow, this person is an incredible salesperson. You know how some people you just meet and they just draw you in right immediately? That's Donna's personality. She just draws you in. But go ahead and share kind of the 30,000-foot view, as I call it, of your journey, like what got you into the business and really where you've built your practice to today.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, it was a long journey and a long time ago. I was a lot younger, but I was living in South Florida. I was a single mom, and I went to apply for a position, for a customer service position for a local insurance company, Allstate. And I remember pulling up, and there was a line of people in this shopping center. Just lines. And I finally got up and I went in and they started interviewing me. And I remember the guy said, wait right here. And he ran out and he told everyone, go away. I've already found my person. He says, I think I'm going to keep you. I'm like, yes. I haven't had a dad since I was 16. So, and he did. He took me under his wing. It was an absolutely fabulous ride. And I learned a lot really quick. And, I probably learned things I shouldn't have learned also. And so I decided to get married and I relocated to New Jersey. So I started working and running semi-retired agents' offices for Allstate. And it was hard work. for next to no pay, and I remember just no end to it. And I'm, waiting tables and tending bar. And by then I'm raising 3 kids on my own. Again, I'm great with work ethics, but no, I ended up being a single mother with 3 kids. And, I worked day and night, and I still participated. I still coached sports. Sometimes I'd sit down with a bottle of wine or a bottle of beer, and I'd still be working at 2 a.m. I slept very little. And one day I just decided I had had enough, and I put my resume on Monster. And I was still on Monster, and within 10 minutes, my phone was ringing saying, "I want you, I need you, you're coming to PA where you can make money." And
Wow.
I got in my car and I drove over, and, within a day I was looking at becoming my own independent agent. The problem was I had to have almost $60,000 in the bank to be able to open a scratch business. So
wow.
so I owned a home. I had a girlfriend that kept coming over, and every time she'd come over, she'd say, "I love your house. I want to buy your house." So I picked up the phone, called her, and said, "Hey, you want to buy my house?" I said, "No realtor, come buy my house, me and you now." And we did. And I settled, and I took, it's, not this, it's not really a sane thing to do when you have kids at home, to just sell your house so you can open a business with 0 income. But, I thought, go big or go home. So that's what I did. I was all in. And I remember living in the, on the main line in Pennsylvania, and I would cross a street and be lost for an hour and a half, just trying to look to find a house to buy. And it was an interesting journey. A lot of things happened, but, I had to have faith in myself. I'm a hard worker. I'm a go-getter. And, dream and believe. And I always say, you have to shoot high. If you dream here, this is as high as you're going to make it. But if you dream to the stars, you have that opportunity to go that high. And most people don't think, how big can I go? I remember been married. I just celebrated 14 years with my Irishman. And we were over in Ireland visiting his father one day, and I was going to buy a second location to expand. And so I had to take a $2 million loan, and he fell over. He's like, "You can't do this. How would you do this? What are you going to do if you fell?" I said, "Well, there's no thing as fell, but 2 million, 2,000, you bankrupt. It all does the same thing to you. So why would I not go all the way?" So I did.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So it's been a long journey, and it's, so far so good. We're in some trying times right now. And, I try to remember, you have to give it away to keep it. So, I really, anytime I can help young entrepreneurs or anyone, I'm always encouraging people, go on your own, start a business, find a passion and turn it into something. What can I do to help you? And I think that's why I have such a passion for small business programs that I design, is because, people need someone to be able to say, you can do this too. I did this, and I went through all these hard times, and, sometimes you eat chicken, sometimes you eat feathers. And I ate a lot of feathers, trust me.
I love that saying.
I was spitting feathers for years. But sometimes, you get discouraged and you put your head in the sand like an ostrich. And, eventually I had to take my head out to breathe and say, what can I do different? And all my education, I've listened to so many of your podcasts. Anything I can listen to, if I could take something away from everything I listen to, just one thing.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing, and I have it on I have several offices, and in every office I have a little sticky, and it says, you can't sell what you're not selling. And it's on every one of my monitors. So I constantly have that in my face, that pick up that phone, because you can't sell it if you're not speaking to someone.
That is so good, man. So many golden nuggets in that story. It actually reminded me of, I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Grant Cardone or not, but he wrote this book called The 10X Rule. And you talked about shooting for the stars and this whole concept of most people think so small. They think so small, and they wonder why their life is what it is, versus trying, like he says, it's just as hard because he's a big time real estate investor as well as a sales trainer. But he goes, what he learned really early on in real estate investing is as hard as you work to close a deal for $200,000, you work basically the same amount for a $10 million deal. So why not go for the $10 million deal? Why not shoot for the stars? So that's just an incredible principle that you apply to people. How big is your business right now?
A little over 6.5 million.
Okay, 6.5 million. And how many agents do you have on your team, or how many people do you work with? Is it just you, or?
No, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Usually any time between 10 and 16 people, not counting, financial specialists and other people that come to me from the company, but those are just, plus I've got a few telemarketers in different parts of the country that telemarket for me.
Awesome. So walk us through the number one question we get when it comes to building your business is, how do you get new clients? And obviously you've been at this for years, so you've probably experimented with a ton of different things, but is there any advice you would give to new business owners and how they should go after trying to generate new business?
Well, my number one thing is don't wait for the phone to ring, because it's not. I do so many different things. I dabble in so many different ways. And, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you just, lick your wounds and move on. I'm doing some Google work right now. I've got telemarketers in different states and stuff, telemarketing, different programs that I'm running. We have, we use Sales Genie to pull names and stuff. I use a program called Send Out Cards, and we're sending cards out to people. We use your program, with magazines and all.
You're making me blush. You're making me blush here, Donna.
This was a setup, everybody.
I don't even know if you know that, but yeah. So I do so many different things. When I first started, I can't tell you the tens of thousands of dollars I spent on, supporting sports teams and, just to have your names out there and stuff. And, I got more business out of having a truck with my logo on it than anything. It's like a running billboard. And eventually people say, what do you have, 5 or 10 of those running around? Yeah. I have one.
They just run a lot.
Yeah. But, so I just do so many different things, but it's constantly trying new things.
So you mentioned Google. Are you spending more of your time from an SEO perspective, trying to be like the local, locally found? Are you spending more of your time from an ads perspective, meaning actually bidding on keywords that would get people to click and then take action on requesting X?
Well, we're doing both. So I'm actually buying ads where I'm coming up at the top in an ad. We're also, we're trying to get my name to generate more toward the top.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
From an organic perspective, yeah.
So obviously you're trying to rank on Google, but I've heard you mention a couple times something that's near and dear to my heart, which is the idea of picking up the phone. And I'm curious because a lot of people are under the impression that cold calling is dead or the phones are dead today. And I just want to get your take on, cold calling and calling people. And it's obviously been really successful for you over time. Can you give us kind of what you've done to try to get good at over the phone sales and what you've implemented in your business?
Yeah, not everyone agrees with me. I've been told, a friend of mine says, you're micromanaging your team. I said, well, someone's got to do it,
I love that.
I bought these little these little timers on Amazon, and I bought one for everyone. And I said, so you're here for 8 hours a day. So every hour you're going to sit for 5 hours out of the day, you're going to set this timer for an hour. And I expect you to make at least 10 calls an hour, because they're doing other things also.
Sure.
And I said, so now in 5 hours, you're going to have 50 calls a day in. Now you do 50 calls by how many employees I have calling, not counting my telemarketers. There's no reason why they're not selling X, Y, and Z every week. Because I found that, by really watching a lot of my staff over the years, I find that they just get busy. it gets pushed aside and pushed aside and pushed aside.
Yep.
So it's a matter of you at some point, because everything has to be measurable. You've got to track it, you got to measure it, and then you got to go back and look, well, if this isn't working, maybe I need to work with this person on their sales technique, or maybe I need to give some training to them over here or something. So that if they're not doing the work, so, and I also went with the voice over IP phone system. So I can track in and outgoing calls.
Love that.
So
No,
I know who's calling, when they're calling, how many times, how long they're talking and so forth, because I'm not going to know they need the help. And some of my employees speak Chinese. I do not speak Chinese, but I can still sort of tell what they're doing just by the calls that they're making out and what's going on. And then I can look over their quotes and stuff. So it's all about training and stuff, but getting them to build that habit of making those calls. It's not easy.
No, it's not. I love that. There's so many good things in there. I think, the comparison I've always given to our sales guys and girls when they complain about the measuring, I go, look, you don't think Tom Brady measure? I don't even like Tom Brady, okay? So, but you got to respect the guy, right? One of the greatest athletes ever. You don't think he measures everything he does? That man, when you read his book, he measures the amount of water he intakes, the amount of sleep he gets. Like, he measures every area of his life. Why? Not because he wants to be micromanaged, but because of exactly what you're saying. When you track the details in the data tells a story. And that story will then point you in the right direction. And so I think for people, when it comes down to it, it's like the phone is so heavy. It's like 1,000 pounds for so many people. Because they're scared of the rejection or whatever it is. They're not trained in order to handle the objections and stuff they're going to get on the other end of the phone. But it really is just trying to get people to understand this principle of frequency creates greatness. And the more you dial, the more you call, the more, guess what, luckier you're going to get, and you're going to actually get results. Now, how many do you guys track, like, appointments when you're calling? So you're trying to get them to do 50 phone calls a day. Do you track, like, how many appointments they get, or what is it that you're measuring from a, ROI standpoint for your callers?
Their quotes.
Okay. So what is that? Can you walk me through?
Same thing, but, how many quotes were they able to get? How many people let them give them a price for insurance?
Okay, and then those quotes, are you tracking how many quotes, I guess, then turn into actual purchases? Okay.
Yeah, so what percentage are they selling? What percentage are they cross-selling to bundle? Because, in my line of business, the more policies you have, the more likely they're going to stay with you, opposed to one policy.
Okay.
So retention's really important in my business.
So have the phones been your greatest weapon to build the practice there?
One of them, but referrals, because it's all about the service you give. Once you get the customer, it's all about the service. We can't do anything about the prices. That's a corporate deal. It's all about, though, what makes us stand out. I'll ask people, what is more important to you, Luke, besides price? People think, well, I've got to change because I'm going to constantly chase that lower premium, but you're not always getting the quality of the product. And so we try to go over and beyond. We like to let people know what you're purchasing, let them make an educated. I don't want to price someone on the coverage that they had when they were 18 years old and now they're 45 and they've got 4 kids and a house. And, I need to make sure that it fits their needs today. And a lot of people don't do that. They make it just about the price. And because the consumers are educated on what the coverages are, probably 80% of the time, they just go by the price. What you need to do is you need to sort of step back, take the price out of the equation. And what do you need today? What are your needs to fit your unique family situation? It's, no different than if I said, okay, Luke, tell me the 3 most important things to you. What are your 3 most valuable assets in your life?
I love that. 1 would be my wife. That's just for getting me kudos, 2nd would be my company. 3rd would probably be, I should say wife and family is 1, but it probably goes wife, family, company. It's probably
what about Bilbo?
3. Well,
what's
your dogs are part of your family, right? Bilbo, Nora, they're part of your family.
I hear 2 there. I hear your family and I hear your business.
Yes. You want my 3rd? Okay. What else is valuable to me? Family, business.
How about your assets?
They're not that important to me. I don't really care about them. I'm just kidding. Yes, let's go with my assets.
I was going to say your Instagram handle at Luke Acree.
Yeah, my assets. Yeah.
So, well, we don't need to worry about slander or anything for your handle, but let's go with your assets, okay? But for your family, that's great because you're insuring your family. And how do you do that? You do that through financial services, which you're very familiar with because you guys work a lot with financial planners.
Right.
You know, and then you talk about your business. Well, you have to have the proper insurance to protect your assets. What if you're sued for something? Mm-hmm. What if you have a fire? What if someone sues you for discrimination or something like that? You need to make sure you have the proper coverages in place for all the different unique situations that could happen. You are a large operation. You have a lot of employees. You have a lot of exposure there. So you want someone who's going to come in and make sure you're properly covered. You're not just going to say, well, no, I'm going to take this policy because it's $500 cheaper, but you're missing this, 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 and this. And then you have your home, you insure your home. The problem I run into is a lot of your small businesses, especially like home-based businesses, they don't take insurance. I can't afford it. Well, if you can't afford it, you can't afford not to have it because anyone can sue you for anything. It could cost you tens of hundreds of dollars, you know, just literally just to defend yourself. And that's what I run across every day because people are not educated on insurance. That's my job to do that. But so many times you go to a company and they don't take the time to look at what your actual needs are or to ask you questions like what is important to you when it comes to insurance besides the price. The price is a no-brainer.
Right. Well, it's people don't buy on price either. Like price is it.
A lot of people buy on price. That's the problem.
People always buy on value. See, I would say that people don't buy on price. I would say that the value that they have when they're thinking about their price is something different. Meaning like if the value was there, people would pay whatever price, but they don't see the value, so they then rate shop or whatever it is. It all comes down to the value that someone sees. And so whenever somebody is not buying from you because it's too expensive, the real reality, and I think you were getting at this when you were walking through your concierge kind of model, is that you got to find out what makes this person tick. What is Tony Robbins says this: when you are creating a business, you're either doing one of two things or sometimes both. You're either solving someone's pain, so you're helping them move away from pain, or you're helping them move towards their greatest desire. So you're helping them achieve a goal. So ultimately, what it costs to solve a pain is going to be correlated to the value that's represented. I think it's Grant Cardone that talks about blueberries. Well, you might pay $1.50 a pound. I don't even know what blueberries go for right now, but you might pay $1.50 a pound for blueberries. Donna, you might freaking love blueberries. You might go up to $4 a pound for blueberries. But at a certain point, the value of the taste of blueberries and how much you love them, you might not pay $100 for a blue. It's kind of like that balance of value versus, price is always what it is. So I always encourage people, man, when you run into where people want to drive you into commodity, rate shop you, it's how do I speak to, it's kind of what you're saying. How do I find out what is super important to them, their pain or their greatest desire? And once you got that, then you just kind of, I call leverage. You just push against that ultimately because people will buy based upon that, if that makes sense.
Unfortunately, though, a lot of salespeople that are really good salespeople, but they don't understand how to go that last step. Like for your business, your income's important. But look at COVID-19 right now. How many people are without an income?
Yeah, I know.
Because it's just, you have to make sure that you protect all of your, I always say CYA, cover your assets.
Well, you have an interesting challenge as a salesperson because you have to sell people on what could happen in a way. Yeah, the what ifs. I guess walk us through a little bit of like when you're training some of your salespeople, like what are some of the things you point out to them of how you paint a picture or what you should do? What are some of the things you point out to them?
Oh my God, the list is on and on and on. The main thing is because it changes every time you speak to someone because most people's situations are unique. When my phone rings, for an example, someone calls me about life insurance, that's because they just buried someone. People don't call about life insurance because they don't see the value in it, because you're not walking out with a commodity. You're not walking out with a new pair of shoes or a fancy car, so they don't care. They just want to pay whatever they feel they have to pay to get that piece of paper. The problem is when you're a loss, when you have a loss, now it's like, what do you mean I don't have that? What do you mean I don't have this coverage or that coverage? Or why do I not have broken pipe coverage? Because you chose not to have it, because you based your needs on the cost, not what you needed to protect. So it is hard. So a lot of my training starts once they start getting involved with people. But how I like to do, and I've always excelled, I'm not a great telemarketer. I don't want to pick up the phone and call. I figure I have enough to do running a business. I hire people to do that. And, and maybe it was Tony Robbins that said this, but someone said that if you're not good at a job, or there's something that you don't particularly care to do, as an owner, hire someone to do that work for you if they can do it better.
Yeah, leverage.
And I'll be, I'm the first to say, it's not my greatest strength, but I'm a closer. So I tell, my employees, I say, if you have someone that you just feel that you're hitting a brick wall, bring them to me. But when I do it, you have to sit in on it, because I want them to understand how to overcome the objection of price, because I am selling what if this happens, what if this happens, what if this happens. And they don't want to hear that. They want to say, well, can't you save me money? Well, yes, I can save you money. But what if this, or this happens? And when it happens and you don't have the coverage, I've always said it's sort of like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. You're screwed if you need it and you don't have it. So, and a lot of people will self-insure, but that's why, like for auto insurance, the law says in this state, $15,000 per person, $30,000 per occurrence, and $5,000 property damage. $5,000 won't replace the bumper on my truck if you hit my truck. So
that's a nice truck. That's a nice truck. What type of truck? No.
It's a Jim Sue Denali. But no,
But in essence, what you're doing is you're stacking on, like if I was, pointing out to the audience, is you're showcasing the pain, the missed opportunity. A lot of times we do this in our sale here at ReminderMedia is, people know, that they got to invest in their clients, right? So they know they have to market to their clients, but it's not enough. Them knowing they have to do it is not enough to get them to move. It's really painting the picture for them of going, all this lost revenue that you have, like, right now, Donna, in your business, you have old leads that you're not following up with that you should be. You have clients that you're not nurturing the way you should be. And there's so much missed opportunity on the table. Now, it's really painting that picture, right, for people that makes them feel how much they're losing, the what ifs, as you would call it, because that triggers what I always call is the emotion. And what I teach salespeople is, look, people are convinced on logic, but they take action on emotion. People don't like taking action if they're not convinced on logic, meaning it has to logically make sense, but then they'll take action when you emotionally charge them up. So you as the closer, that because you're naturally, hey, bring them to me, because guess what? You did the logic. You quoted them. You told them this is what the features are. It's going to solve A and B for you or whatever it is. But now you have to charge them up from the emotional side. And I think there was a study done that, literally the action part of you as a human is done by the emotional part of the brain, not the logical part of the brain. So what causes you to actually move and take action and do all these things is actually in your emotions. So you got to charge them up with that what if.
Well, one of the main things that I teach my sales team is you have to paint a picture, because people have to be able to see it in their head to actually understand it. So and what I'll do is I'll tell them, well, for an example, if this happens, this is a scenario for it. And if you can paint that picture in their head, they can actually physically see it going on, or they can relate to it from this or that. Or as I'm talking and I'm building a relationship, back in my heyday when I was, working for other people, they always had a sign behind my desk that said, Dear Donna, and it was a knockoff of Dear Abby. You might not be old enough to know Dear Abby, but it was a newspaper article with this little old lady named Abby, and everyone called the questions. They'd spill their souls. people come to my desk, they would spill their guts to me. Still do. I mean, I could tell you anything and everything about everything in their family. I couldn't always remember their name, but I knew everything their kids have ever done in their life. So, but you get to know someone, and when you know someone, you know more of what is important to them, and you can tailor it more to be personal to them, because insurance is personal. Most people don't realize it, but it really is, because you're protecting those 3 top assets that are most important to you, and that was your family, your business, your assets.
That's actually a golden nugget, what you just said there from a sales and marketing standpoint, is the more you can paint a picture, and the only way you can paint a picture is by knowing someone personally. And the more you know them personally, the more you understand their greatest pains or their greatest desires, and you're able to, ultimately what sales is an exchange of value. It's solving problems for people. It's convincing people that, hey, I can solve your problem. And so what you're doing and touching on is like, the more personal you can know your clients, the more personal you can understand what their pain points are, the more you can actually present to them something that actually will give them value that they'll want to take action on. Because good salespeople, not that you don't have to ask for the order. You always have to ask for the order. But if you do a good enough job, it's natural to ask for the order. People are not shocked when you're asking them for the order.
Right. Well, a lot of times, I mean, you have the option to pay less. Go to 1-800, what 18-year-old will not care about me today? Okay. Because you don't matter. You'll never speak to that person again. I have a reputation to maintain and uphold. And to do that, I have to take care of my customers. And in this business, we all know in sales, retention's just as important as growth, because it takes 2 sales to make up for 1 loss. So, it's imperative that I have people who specialize in retention also. But very little does any of my business grow by people calling in to me, hardly, unless it's through some type of networking. I am a networker. I network my butt off. I'm always somewhere with something, doing something or building relationships, because it's really important to do that in sales. But the majority of my business comes from referrals. It comes from those relationships and networking and, working with, other professionals. And then those referrals are number 1. And then, like you said, win backs, going to people who worked with me before and left, because other people's rates are going up also. We are the first to have a new pay as you go, which is great. My mother just turned 84. Can't say that too loud. She is in this house, but she was paying, like, the older you get, the more it costs. It's like being a 16-year-old driver again, because the reflexes, I guess they've proven, aren't as great, but she was paying $1,600 a year. And now that she can pay as she goes, because she drives maybe 1,000 miles a year, she's like $600 a year now. So, that's something that's tailoring toward people who don't drive very much, but they're being penalized based on their age. The same with someone who's young. They don't drive very often.
Right.
So it's different things like that. But now, how do you market things like that? How are we going to take that? But it's actually, you can't go with the mindset of, I need the sell, I'm going for the sell. It's the mindset of, who am I going to help today? Who would this be a good fit for? And how can I enhance their life, put some money back in their pocket so they can afford to live, and help them? And when you sort of take the perspective of it, and you just sort of turn it and look at it from a different set of eyes, now people know when you're just trying to take them for what you can get, or when you really sincerely care about them. And if you're in sales and you can't do that, I always tell people, your mother had to have given you a good heart. I can teach anyone to sell insurance. I can teach anyone our products, but I can't teach you how to care about people. I can't teach you how to want to do good for them. You don't figure out, like, and I always, the gambler, that song, count your money when you're done. Wait until it's over. Don't think in your head, well, I could earn this, this, and this, so I'm going to go for this seller. I'm going to go for this. No, it's about, what can you do to help them and protect their assets? And your reward is, you make a nice commission, you get referrals, they stay with you because they trust you, and they're only going to do that if you're offering the service as you go on. To get the sale is not as hard as it is to retain that sale.
No,
and people
amen.
will pay more. People will pay more to stay with someone that they trust. And everyone I've ever hired since I first started in business in 2004, honesty, loyalty, and trust means everything to me. And anyone I've ever hired or even interviewed has heard me say that. Honesty, loyalty, and trust. And if you break that, we are done. Because that's how I live my life. That's how I run my business. And that's how I feel I need to take care of my clients, because they count on me. Because if they have a loss and I don't have the coverage for them and I didn't do my job properly, not only could that be, an E&O claim, but what's that do to my reputation? I have to be able to sleep at night. So
they're your core values. Those are your core values. Meaning, like, if you look at companies, like, what are the core values that drive your organization? What do you believe in and holding to it? You've literally hit on so many golden nuggets of what Josh and I truly believe is the key to business. One of the ones you just touched on is what we've heard over and over again on this podcast, is this idea of serving and not selling, of the relationship over the transaction, and that if you just switch your mindset to where you don't have commission breath and you're actually trying to help somebody versus earning a commission check, you're actually going to win. This other principle of, look, sales, it's everything. But guess what? If you can't keep your clients, you said it's 2 sales for every 1 person you lose in your business. And I've heard even more in other businesses. So focusing on the relationship to actually drive the retention. I'm curious, Donna, because I ask everybody who comes on the show, so I got to ask you, knowing what you know now, because you've had an incredible career, you've built an incredible business there, what would you go back and tell younger Donna? What advice would you give her?
Well, first off, in my marketing, I had touched on earlier that I spent tens of thousands of dollars sponsoring ball games and this and that. And what a waste of money. I'm sorry. That I could have I would have been better off just buying leads, for the return on my money. But, so how I handled my marketing, even how I handled my employees in the beginning, because, it's one thing to become real friendly or to be, it's either all or none, but it isn't. There needs to be a level. And I've learned, that, what I try to do when I hire people is I try to remember what was important to me when I was in their position, even if it was,
that's great,
having a radio in the office, something like that. But, what was important to me, because it's not always just about money. And in the beginning, that's how I ran it, was just, I didn't stop to think, well, what was important to me back then? Because I can't run my business on my own. You can't run your business on your own. It takes a team to move a mountain. The way ants work just amazes me. It blows my mind every time, because they're more organized than any human bunch I've ever met in my life. It's about the teamwork and, and the structure. I just would have done my structure different in how I did things. And, I would have sold my home. I would have still banked on me, things like that, but a little risky. But yeah, I think a lot of it would have been around marketing and, making sure that the team works properly and stuff. But, as well as I do, it's really hard to get, good help. And, people want to earn a paycheck, but not everyone does. And they can come in and shine in an interview,
What
Luke
is
says
it?
that about me all the time. Every time he looks at me, he goes, Josh, it's really hard to get good help around here. Come on, I'm right here, Luke.
It's everyone wants to make $100K, but no one wants to work. That's what it is.
And the honesty in some of that is just hard. It's like
very
I said,
hard.
I can't teach people how to have a good heart.
Yep. My rant is always just the idea of value, but that's a whole nother podcast we have to get into. I think the education system is failing kids in the idea of value and how currency is exchanged and what it means to have a job and all that stuff. But that's a whole nother podcast. We'll leave that to another show.
Donna,
that's a deep well.
Yep.
Donna, thanks so much for coming on. Before we go, I know you've got a program. You've got this policy. We have a lot of real estate agents that listen. You've got this policy for real estate that has some gap coverage. Can you tell everybody about that?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. Thank you. I have several friends that are realtors, and the one thing I've noticed is that they're all covered under their broker's E&O, but they're still 1099 self-employed business owners. So they have no general liability. And so what I did is I worked with the home sales team of Allstate Business Insurance, and I fought with them. Well, I didn't fight with them, but I'm strongly put my opinions on them, how I thought it should look. But we've designed this product where we can either do a whole group through the broker or the manager, or we can do individual for the real estate agents. The policy starts at $225 a year. Highest price I've seen is maybe $300 a year. So you're talking the cost of a couple lattes a month or a pizza. But we're giving them that $1 million umbrella. Or they have the E&O, but E&O is simply for basically their miscommunications. It's going to cover them for their professional neglect, but there's no coverage when they're at showings. There's no coverage. You're more likely to be sued under a general liability while these homes are in your care, custody, and control than you ever will be for a misrepresentation on an E&O policy. So we designed this policy. Also, if you're doing a showing, it will cover any damage that the potential buyer does. Say they knock over an expensive vase or something. But what if someone says, well, my diamond earrings are missing? Okay, they're going to sue you. If you don't have this coverage, your broker's policy can't cover you because you're an independent contractor. Why would you not cover your assets, CYA? Because, and again, if you can't afford the cost of a pizza once a month, then you can't afford not to have this coverage. Because what happens when you have to pay $10,000 out to an attorney just to start representing you on a lawsuit? And then what if you have to pay out for the physical damages also? So there's so many different coverages. We've put cybersecurity, data compromise, wire transfer if you need that. There's a showcase to cover everything at the showing and stuff. So,
and what's the URL to find all of that?
Well, you can go right to my website. It's realtorscoverage.com.
Nice. Awesome. And you also have DOSullivaninsurance.com. So we're going to put those links in the show notes here.
And I have D. O'Sullivan at Allstate also.
Nice.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thanks again so much, Donna, for coming onto the show and sharing really your story and what you've learned. I know there's a lot of solid takeaways from that. And thank you for listening, everybody. Like I said, those links will be in the show notes of this episode along with the video. It is at staypaidpodcast.com. And if you are interested in supporting the show, there's 2 ways we ask you to do that. First is
only
to rate us
2 ways.
There's only 2 ways. Only 2 ways. Rate us on iTunes and leave a comment. And the best way is to tell a friend about us and share this episode on your social media. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com, or you can find us on Instagram. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I am Joshua Stike.
Guys, and I'm Luke Acree, and I think the action item from this episode that you can take away is, in your sales presentation, what is the what if that you're describing to your clients? What is that pain point, that what if you're a real estate agent, what is the what if they don't use you? What is the what if of their house being on the market, right? If you're an insurance agent, you can connect right with Donna's story. But start thinking right now, what is your what if story? Because remember what Tony Robbins says, it's either people want to run from their pain or they want to accomplish a goal. So this what if is really helping them solve that first one, which is, how do you overcome this pain? What if this pain happens to you? Remember, the difference between a top producer and a mediocre producer in every single industry we've worked in is top producers take action. Take action on that today.